Hello everyone, welcome to Abnormal Investigations. Got another encounter for you today. It's going to be your early morning encounter. We're going to drop two a day and see how they do. Yesterday done really well, so I thought we would try it again today. The other video we're going to be dropping on Patreon. We're starting to work on it, guys, and I'll let you know when it's close to be dropped. It'll only be able to be dropped there because of the content. We're going to be exploring some things that YouTube really doesn't want us to drop. Alright guys, let's get into today's. It was an early Monday morning, cold and crisp. I had just begun to pack up for the week-long hunting trip. I had the tent and the bear traps packed into the back of the truck and tied down with a couple of bungee cords. I began the long drive around 7 a.m. to get to our usual spot. My friend Clyde decided to tag along this time. It wasn't unusual for him to be interested in hunting, but this time he said something that I will always remember. He said, "Can I go with you this time? It'd be a shame if you went alone and never came back." He did sound confident in his words, but he was my best friend, so I couldn't tell him no. We stopped for a snack at the base of the mountains at a small gas station. There was an old man sitting outside in a rocking chair, and he must have overheard me talking about the trip. He also saw me in my camouflage and hunter's orange. He said something that was out of the ordinary and kind of weird, if you ask me. He said, "You'd better be careful up on those mountains. It's about time of the year for when people start seeing that creature that some call the Wendigo." Being me, a non-believer in mountain folklore and horror stories, I brushed off the warning. Little did I know the trip would indeed be cut short due to an encounter I will never forget. It was almost 6 p.m. and Clyde had turned on the radio. There was a report of about a rapid decline in the grizzly bear population around that time of year. I asked Clyde if we should be worried, and he said not to worry about the grizzlies since we were about to set up traps. I nodded my head in agreement, and we continued on. It was 8 p.m. now, and the sun was going down. I grabbed a flashlight and headed down the trail with Clyde. We had walkie-talkies to stay in touch over the long distances in case we got separated. They were for emergencies only, but we would occasionally use them to joke around. I came to a small opening between two bushes and decided to set a trap there. I covered it up with branches and leaves and marked it with a stick standing up just for an extra precaution that we wouldn't step in it if we went back to retrieve them. On my trek to meet with Clyde, I heard something almost like a scratching noise coming from my left side. I shone my light over there and to the side to see what it was. The noise had stopped when the light flashed over that area. I walked closer to investigate and found 4 long scratches on a tree. Each scratch was about an inch deep and a foot and a half long. I brushed off any ideas and went inside. I figured it was just a bear. About 30 minutes into the walk, I heard a distant screech, not much of a screech, but a roar. It sounded like the squealing brakes of a freight train mixed with the growl of a dinosaur. Really hard to explain what I heard. My radio came alive with Clyde's voice. "Did you hear that?" he asked. His voice sounded shaky, and he did sound scared. I decided to tell him to meet back at the camp. Later that night, I told him I was going to go check the traps as a routine hunter would do. It was about midnight now, and the visibility was low due to the snowfall and the darkness. I came up to the trap I had set earlier, and nothing seemed wrong. But the trap was gone. It was nowhere. It was ripped in half, the bolts and springs were lying everywhere, and the leaves and branches were scattered. To the right of the trap was a game trail about 30 feet from the field. I shone my light over there, and I heard rustling in the leaves. What I saw will forever give me nightmares. It was an 8-foot tall, best I could describe, humanoid creature with long claws the size of my forearm. Each breath it took sounded like gurgling. I could hear it breathing from exactly where I was at 30 feet away. It growled at me and began to slowly get down on all fours. Its limbs began to pop and crack into place as it leaned its body against a tree. It slowly made its way back to the brush line, leaving me alone, or so I thought. My light began to flicker, and as it did, the creature must have become agitated. It began to speed walk toward me each stride probably covering about 5 feet in length. It outstretched its arms toward me. The high-pitched screech I heard before, I heard again. The creature stopped, 6 feet in front of me. It opened its wide jaws as if it found no interest in the screech, slowly getting closer as if it was going to bite me. Then I heard Clyde's voice from about 40 feet behind me, calling my name. I had never felt so relieved in my life. His approaching flashlight had caused the creature to return to the woods with its evil hiss. It was hissing at me like a cat, etching itself into my mind forever. We got back to the camp, and I tried to convince Clyde about how I saw the Wendigo, but all he did was laugh. He didn't believe in any supernatural entities or creatures, and he said he wouldn't start now. But I kind of felt the same way. I finally convinced him to pack up our things and to leave, and when we got back home, I just stood on my porch and waved goodbye to Clyde. As I stood there, I suddenly felt like I was being watched. I stared into the woods across the road, and I saw it once more, standing there staring at me. It shortly went back into the woods, and I never saw it after that, though. I do hear the screech from time to time out in the woods. To this day, I don't tell anyone about it, afraid they wouldn't believe me or ridicule me. And, to be quite frank, most people will. But I trust you, Mike, and I've seen you share many stories, and you have a very accepting audience. I never went back up to those mountains after that night. The experience left me shaken, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still out there, and after what I'd seen, there was no way I wanted to see that again. I've tried to research the Wendigo legend, but there's not much information available. Some say it's a supernatural being from Native American folklore, a creature that possesses individuals and turns them into monstrous beings for hunger for human flesh. Others claim that the Wendigo is a real creature, a being that roams the forest and mountains, preying on unsuspecting victims. I don't know what to believe, but I do know that I'll never forget the night in those mountains. I have not hunted since, and I probably won't hunt again. The memory of that creature standing in front of me with its mouth open and the jagged teeth, the size of it and the size of those claws, I was easily going to be its prey. Clyde saved my life that day, and I'm not going to go back again. Thank you for sharing my story. It's interesting how you say, you saw it across from your house. It's like these things do follow you home. And it's not uncommon for them to follow you home. Why they do that, I don't know. It happened at my granny's. That's how it all started. It followed my uncle home. It's like you could accidentally have a run-in with one of these things and then have to deal with it the rest of your life because it follows you home. Should we take a different path home if we have an encounter? I don't think it would hurt. What do y'all think? Should we go straight home, or should we go out of our way to make it harder for it to find us? Let me know what you think in the chat, guys. And until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And we'll see you on the next one.